everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're on volume 4 of Heaven Officials Blessing! Yes, we are on volume 4 of Heaven Officials Blessing. Finally, we're getting into the good stuff. I've been excited about this volume for a long time, particularly because of that cover, and we are on our way to getting to this point in the story because we're only like 7 chapters in, 9 chapters in, and we've been like flirting in the DMs. We've been giving each other heart eyes, sharing deep, dark secrets. Like we're getting into some deep stuff with our boys, and I'm really excited. So we unfortunately will not have Manhua chapters for a while because Star Ember is on hiatus, but that's fine. I feel like we've got plenty to cover in this volume to keep us satisfied and to give us hopefully some very nice things to look forward to in Star Ember's work. But I have just a few stray comments before we get started with this chapters. We're going to be looking at chapters 110 to 112. And last set of chapters, well, actually the last 2 weeks have been chaos. Like there's been a lot of comments, but there's not been a lot of discussion. One, because everybody's being super nice and not spoiling me, which thank you. But also because it's just madness. It's just the truth or dare, 3 questions and a lie, cosplay events, like a rave. Like there's just been, and in the midst of it all, Xie Lian and Hua Cheng are like, so these are how we're doing our dates now. Okay. Like it's just kind of crazy. And then there's all of this mystery surrounding the events and like the Reverend of Empty Words. Like there's just so much chaos. And MXTX is like, it feels so jarring at this point in the story because, you know, volume one seems the tamest thing in the world now compared to where we are, right? Volume 1 seems like, wow, this is just kind of slow and we're just doing our own thing. And now it's just like, like a nonstop. That's what it feels like. It feels like there's violins playing in volume 1 and here it's like electronic dance music 24/7. That's what it feels like. And it just gets more chaotic as we go. I'm like, MXTX, you're going to have to slow down because if we get any more chaos than this going into volumes 5, 6, 7, and 8, But I've really liked these chapters so far. It's something very different than what we've had. It's just with the Windmaster and the Earthmaster there, it's a new dynamic. And Hua Cheng doesn't like the Earthmaster at this point and is kind of worried about everybody except Xie Lian. Xie Lian's just trying to be BFFs with Windmaster. It's just there's so much going on and keeping track of that MXTX is like, oh, while I'm here, let me throw paint on everything and you just keep up with it. And it's like, what is happening? So I only have a few very small comments. One, SQQLBH314 said that apparently there are actually bloody fire socials in China still, which I thought was really interesting. Although they said they did do a warning in their comments saying if you're going to go look any of them up, make sure you haven't ate because like in the book, they can get pretty gruesome looking. And I was like, okay. I don't usually ascribe to gore, so I may not do that. But it is good to know that they do exist and it's based on something real. Interesting. And then Anime Annie said that the scholar in the last set of chapters that we were introduced to in the story is their name is pronounced Ha instead of he. It's spelled like He in English, which in English would be he, but in Chinese would be Ha. And I was like, okay, Ha. I can do that. I don't want to know anything about them. There has been a couple of comments where people were like, they seem important. And I'm like, please don't spoil me. I was like, please don't say anything about them. I was like, no, they seem rather important. I get that, but I don't want to know anything about them. So as we enter volume 4, please, no spoilers, hints, or clues. Let me figure it out on my own. We'll get to it, and then we can talk about it when we get to it. But yeah, so chapters 110 to 112. When we last left off, the Windmaster was being taken away, deaf and blind by we don't know who. We assume it's the Reverend of Empty Words, but we are not certain. Could be anybody. Could be a foe. Could be friend. We don't know. They could be miles away. They could be right here. We were communicating through the communication array, so we don't really know what's going on. And that's kind of a big moment, right? So I've been really excited. I'm actually recording this the day after part 32 has come out, but I just read through the chapters today and I was like, I can't wait. I need to do it. I need to read it. I want to know what happens next. We ended on a cliffhanger. I had other things I had to catch up on and now I'm caught up and I'm like, no. We're not going any further until we look at the chapters for this week. So, as you can tell, I'm very hyped up. I'm very excited and I have some coffee that will in no way, shape, or form make things worse. So, we are going to start chapters 110 to 112 of Heaven Official's Blessing and just keep on the roller coaster of madness, right? So, we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's go. Chapter 110. The Fight the Reverend. The Crown Prince takes the Windmaster's place. Oh my God. Xie Lian, are you going to be... Is Xie Lian going to try to take the Windmaster's place literally and have the Reverend of Empty Words come after him instead of the Windmaster and say, oh, I'm a much better target? Is that where we're going? Hua Cheng is right there. I can't see Hua Cheng being okay with this, but just see what happens. Okay, no more sounds came from Xi Ching-chong. No worries. Xie Lian was feeling unsettled. What happened? Are you still here? What's going on? Why aren't you saying anything? If he'd only been taken away by rowdy night cruisers who were only seeking a bit of fun, he wouldn't be so quiet so suddenly. Had he met harm already? But being anxious and distraught was useless, since he didn't even know where he was. Okay, so the crowd finally left, and Mingyi was able to push out of the temple. The heavenly realm had a decree to never use spiritual power selfishly on mortals, nor to appear before them at will. If mortal lives were harmed or taken, it would be recorded and penalized. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting to know. The decree certainly made things difficult for law-abiding heavenly officials. Otherwise, with just a wave of their hands, those people would fly away like that roof. The crowd finally snapped out of it and started screaming. It's appeared, really appeared. The monsters have come. With that, the crowd broke up and dispersed. Lord Earthmaster... How come you didn't hold on to Lord Windmaster earlier? Have you seen him? When was he lost? Ghosts snuck in and were ambushing people in the crowd. It seemed that he saw there were lives on the line and split his attention to go save them, attacking ghosts, but losing a friend. Well, let's split up, gang! Couldn't have gone far. Oh. And the Windmaster was laughing. Oh. Well, remember, what happened just now? Why did you suddenly stop talking? I thought... something happened to you. What? It's like it's all garbly gooped. Oh, what? How can anything happen to the Windmaster? I was only trying to scare you all. You bastard, how dare you grab a hold of me if I die? I'm definitely turn into a supreme and coming to haunt you. Oh no. Stop your ha-haing. Say something sensible. Xie Lian knew the more anxious and frightened the Windmaster was, the more he would ha-ha. In fact, he'd even forgotten to pause in between words. You didn't open your mouth to speak, did you? Your expression didn't show any obvious changes. Have you fought back? I didn't speak. My expressions didn't change. I didn't fight back. Oh, very good. Listen to me. Everything's all right. Don't be scared. Oh, keep your current status quo and pretend you didn't notice anything. If you didn't have something to say, then just tell it to us in the communication array secretly. No one. Do not let the creature notice that you already know what it is. Your spiritual aura and slowly spread your spiritual aura and form a barrier to protect your person. That way you can at least ensure you won't trip or fall into a ditch. You should be able to sense it. And then take deep breaths just like that. Do it a couple times. Do you feel better? Maybe a little bit. Thanks, Your Highness. Okay. I was thinking they were like possessed by the Reverend already, but no, they're not. They were just freaking out. Oh. How do you think you would feel if you tried to open your eyes and sneak a look at the creature pulling you? I'll probably die. Oh. Oh my God. Oh my God. It seems if the Windmaster were to open their eyes, his terror would peak the moment the eyes could see, and he would turn into a most delicious and delicate meal for the Reverend of Empty Words. After that, he'd probably lose all ability to fight. Besides, if the moment he opened his eyes, that thing was staring back at him, the Windmaster would foam at the mouth on the spot and crash like a falling star. Yeah, that would be absolutely terrifying. Okay, then just keep your eyes closed. After it took you out of the Temple of Wind and Water, which direction did you go? What they needed to know was the location. I don't know. You don't even know such a thing? Who in their right mind remember those things? And didn't I think it was you pulling me? On the side, Hua Cheng was still only observing and was already bored to the point where he changed back into his red robes. Oh, darn it. Then he changed back to black robes again! Then to white robes! Almost every time Xie Lian looked back, he'd be donning a different appearance. And with every new look, there was different hairstyles, different accessories, different boots, and so on. Sometimes playful, sometimes elegant, sometimes deadly, sometimes glamorous. Hua Cheng's over here having a drag show while this is going on. He's already had 4 runway looks, like, while they've been doing this. Xie Lian was growing dizzy from all the colors and kept looking back, unable to look away. The moment he realized what he was doing, he blinked fiercely, only stopping himself from blurting out, "That outfit's not bad, or that looked good. Xie Lian, your best friend is in a life or death situation. You cannot be giving critiques to your boyfriend right now. He doesn't care. Save that for later." He said instead, "Stop. Now's not the time to argue. With every word the Lord Windmaster takes another step, and the more he wanders, the harder he'll be to find. If it's really hard for you guys to find me, it's not more than 50 or 60 steps. It can't be over 100. We're not even going that fast." Oh. Mingyi immediately charged out, disappearing at the end of the street, and not long after, he appeared fast as lightning. Not there. Oh, the distance shortening array. Oh. After that, Reverend of Empty Words used that chaos to take the Windmaster out of the Temple of Wind and Water. It cast a distance shortening array and sent them both elsewhere. Otherwise, in a distance within 100 steps, he should be easy to find. Once that spell was used, who knows where in the world they'd been sent? Searching for the Windmaster was no different than searching for a needle in a haystack. They couldn't be careless in this affair. I'll go report this to the Heavenly Court. Wait, Your Highness, don't go. You promised me to keep this a secret. My brother's 3rd heavenly calamity is coming soon. The 3rd one is huge. He can't be bothered right now. Keep this up and I'll make you go through a trial right now. I said no and I mean it. How many eyes are watching my brother? This thing definitely picked this timing intentionally. I won't let it have its way. Never. Even if I die and my bones rot. I'll still be after my brother's completed. It'll still be after my brother's completed his trial before I can be dug out. Fine. Very good. Oh. There was an oppressed wave of fury. It was an intense emotion that he had never surfaced on him before, making Xie Lian feel rather unsettled. Unwilling for any other to start, he cut in. Lord Windmaster, is that creature still moving you in hand? Yeah, it's dragging my arm. Is there anything notable on its body, like a peculiar sense of evil or certain scent, feel, or something? No, there's nothing. What about your surroundings? Like, is the path under your feet jagged or smooth? Have you stepped on anything or kicked anything? The path is very strange. It's very soft, very light, like clouds. You're probably just weak in the knees from terror. 2 out of the 5 of the Windmaster's senses were sealed. It was hard to scrape together any clues, and it would be more difficult from here. Although Hua Cheng had always been next to them, watching the show leisurely, him tagging along had always been only for entertainment. He had no attachment to the Windmaster whatsoever, and as an entity of the ghost realm, he had no reason to help a heavenly official. Xie Lian also didn't want to trouble him and beg him for help all the time. Thus, he steadied himself and said, Lord Windmaster, I have a way for you to break away from that creature immediately, but I need your permission. Okay, I give you your permission. The soul-shifting spell. What? That's right, the soul-shifting spell. The soul-shifting spell was exactly as its name indicated. It was a spell to switch souls, using one's eyes to see what another sees. This spell wasn't often used. First, it brutally burned out spiritual power, and second, very few were willing to give up control of their own bodies. Oh, Hua Cheng Gege prudence. What are you going to do if it faces you? I'm not scared of it, so it doesn't matter. Do it, Mingyi said. Oh! But Hua Cheng said, Gege, please reconsider. It stopped. No more time to hesitate. Now! Oh, it's all up to you now, Your Highness. Okay! Just as the word left his mouth, he closed both his eyes, and his body suddenly felt feather light, light to the point like he was floating into the heavens. Abruptly, it became exceedingly heavy, heavy to the point like he was going to bore into the earth. It was after a wave of nauseating whirling that his senses returned to him. He steadied his form, but his eyes were still closed. Not a single sound could be heard from his ears. There was a hand grabbing hold of his arm, standing still. Xie Lian opened his eyes in a flash. One hand removed the earplugs and the other flipped, seizing the Reverend of Empty Words in reverse. He smiled. Hi there. The Windmaster had closed his eyes for a long time, and it was pitch black all around. Thus, in the instant Xie Lian opened his eyes of his body, he hadn't adjusted to the darkness and couldn't see anything. However, what was grabbing onto him was now something he was grabbing onto. Rouye wasn't around, so Xie Lian cast a hand-locking spell and secured the hand like a steel cuff to prevent the other from escaping using magic. Within the communication array came the Windmaster's voice. Your Highness, are you all right? Maybe it's better if you switch back and I'll take over myself. So the Windmaster had safely switched bodies. But his leg shot out, kicking it over 30 times. I'm fine. Since their souls had only been just switched, they would need time to adjust. Once he'd gotten used to it, his moves would become even more brutal. Your Highness, let me tell you the incantation for manipulating my spiritual devices. Use as much of my spiritual power as you need. Don't hold back. Xie Lian had no sword to wield and flashed open the Windmaster fan. Okay. I'll tell you the spell for transforming into a woman now. I'm stronger in my feminine form. No, that's not necessary. Oh no. Hua Cheng spoke up gravely. Gege, hurry and take a look at the surroundings. Tell me what place it is. Oh, Hua Cheng's like, I'm ready to get there immediately. No, tell us what you are fighting right now. During the exchange, Xie Lian's eyes had gradually adjusted to the dark environment. He squinted and looked at the black shadow before him. Oh! Fight the Reverend. Crown Prince takes the Windmaster's place too. However, even though the contours of the surrounding trees and branches can now be distinguished, he couldn't make out the face of that black shadow no matter what. It was like there was a cloud of demonic black mist swirling around that figure. The fan of the Windmaster was a first-rate spiritual device. It could blow away evil and bring order to the world. Having received the spell key that the Windmaster passed on to him, he recited in his mind and swept the fan, and a whirlwind blew it from the ground. But the wind was blown a little off course and didn't aim for the right target. Spiritual devices weren't that easy to manipulate. He wasn't the master of the fan after all, and he couldn't naturally handle it as smoothly as the actual Windmaster. With a wish, he generated a sheen of spiritual aura on the edge of the fan. Its shine chilling. The Windmaster figured out what happened. Your Highness, what's wrong with you? That's my spiritual device. I can't believe you're using it as a martial weapon. What a waste of God's gift! This was a problematic habit all martial gods had. Though he was otherwise occupied, Xie Lian spared a moment to say flatly, it's all the same, it makes no difference. Hua Cheng's tone was becoming harsher. Gege! He knew what he was pressing for, and as he fought, his eyes rapidly swept around to look at his surroundings. There were mountains and rivers, towers and pavilions. Really nothing that stood out. Really nothing that could determine where he was. You're not Xi Qingshan. Usually it shouldn't be this easy to figure out the soul-shifting spell was used, so how did it immediately recognize I'm not him? Whatever, keep going! The way he fought was insensible and insensitive. The Reverend of Empty Words seems to not be able to take a beating anymore. It said, you'll fall down this instant. Sure enough, it started to put level curses at Xie Lian directly. However, it was like Xie Lian heard nothing, and he only pummeled harder. You're going to be defeated in battle. Xie Lian laughed. I was already defeated 800 years ago. A few more times means nothing to me. How much more can I be defeated? Just give up. Nothing you say will work. Gege, if you can't determine your location, just fan up a whirlwind into the sky with the Windmaster's fan and I'll know where you are. And Xie Lian had thought of the same idea. He was about to raise his hand. Suddenly that Reverend of Empty Words let out a creepy chuckle. Someone's coming. Xie Lian became alarmed for some reason. Sure enough, that creature said in a low voice, don't worry. With your eyes wide open, you will watch that person coming to seek you die before you. Hearing this, Xie Lian couldn't laugh anymore. His heart dropped violently, and even his breathing stopped in that moment. The next section, he actually yelled out loud, shut up! In a flash, more than 50 heavy kicks landed on that Reverend of Empty Words, each bashing right on its head. It could barely speak from the attack, yet it sighed deeply. It was a sigh of satisfaction, like it had tasted some sacred delicacy, and it laughed coldly. Accidentally dropping his guard, Xie Lian actually let it suck what he wanted from him. Oh my god, yeah, because he likes Hua Cheng. But Xie Lian hadn't mind to notice because the words truly did make his heart feel as if he had been struck violently. Even if he knew Hua Cheng wouldn't die before him so easily as that creature had said, and to be real, Hua Cheng was already dead, still a deep, uncontrollable panic manifested. He didn't realize he couldn't even stand to hear the very idea. Although those in the communication array didn't notice anything amiss, it was like Hua Cheng was telepathic. He became alarmed and said, Gege, is it saying something to you? Oh, it's saying nonsense! No, it said nothing! It's seeking its own death. Tell me right now and I'll go straight over. No need to come, absolutely do not come over! Sorry to interrupt. I say the two of you really did exchange verbal passwords secretly, right? Your Highness, did you not notice? You got the wrong array! The wrong array! It was only then that Xie Lian did discover that ever since using the soul-shifting spell, while every word Hua Cheng had said to him had passed through their private communication array, because he was focused on fighting with his heart a mess on top of that, he only responded to the main communication array. Oh my god, no! The fact they had connected in private was utterly exposed. But there was no time to be embarrassed. It's nothing. Give me half an instant's time and I can take care of this thing. After that, he plugged his ears anew and his attacks became more vicious, focusing only on dealing with the Reverend of Empty Words. But he had no idea that back at the town of Fugu, after Hua Cheng heard his words, he raised his hand and smacked, bashing Ming Yi 3 feet into the ground. He immediately turned to the Windmaster who had taken over Xie Lian's body. Switch back. Crimson Rain sought Flower, what are you doing? I'll switch back right now. His Highness is helping me, so it makes more sense if you hit me. Why did you hit Ming Zhang? But the moment the words left his lips, he realized he was currently in Xie Lian's body. So of course Hua Cheng wouldn't hit him. If he must hit someone, it could only be Ming Yi. On the other side, Xie Lian was immersed in a fight, but he suddenly heard the Windmaster yelling, Your Highness, can you please plug my ears and run further away? I'm switching back. Lord Windmaster, will you be all right? I can't fight, but I can still run away. Thus, the Reverend of Empty Words was given one final kick, making it fly out a few miles away. He turned around to flee wildly, but then stopped. Wait! You don't need to run away. Let me set up a protection array for you. Lord Windmaster, do you have any protective spiritual devices on you? If you don't, precious gems and treasures can do too. Treasure, I've got that. Feel around my neck. There's a longevity locket. Will it do? Sure enough, the Windmaster is wearing a long golden longevity locket, its sheen exquisite and opulent. Yes, this is a rare treasure. Excellent. Really? Oh, I've got more. There's a jade belt around my waist, and a gate ring on my fingers, some pearls on my boots, sandalwood, handle of a whisk older than you. Oh, and apparently the hairs of whisk are also rare, so it's plucked from some kind of spiritual beast. In one breath, he told of 7 or 8 items and continued, in any case, Your Highness, just take a look and see if anything on me can be used. Yes, they could be used. And they were extremely rare treasures. Xie Lian was shocked, as expected of the god of wealth, as expected of the younger brother of the water master. He said they can all be used. I'll find a house nearby and set up an array. When you're switched back, keep the earplugs in. Don't look outside. Stay in the house and don't go out. Wait until we come. Your Highness, you're too reliable. Thank you. From today onwards, you're my second best friend. From now on, the Windmaster will never forget any of your good endeavors. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry and responded politely, Thank you. During their exchange, the Reverend of Empty Words was left far behind. Glancing around, Xie Lian found a small pavilion nearby and charged in, shutting and locking all the doors and windows with a wave of his hand. He then wrapped the golden longevity locket around the door latch, bit blood from his finger to draw a spell, and laid out all the treasures in formation, drawing a blood array. All these actions were done in a short amount of time, and he finally sat in the center of the room, closing his eyes. 1, 2, 3, soul-shifting spell, return! It was like he was violently thrown high into the sky again, then plunged. After a wave of whirling, Xie Lian once again felt his feet touch the ground. Unsteady, he was going to fall over. Before he did, a pair of hands caught and supported him. He opened his eyes and heard Hua Cheng's voice from above, dark and gray. Grave, Gege, I think you better explain yourself. Where's the Lord Earthmaster? Who knows? Who knows? There was a human-shaped crater on the ground and Ming Yi was slowly crawling out of the hole. Ah! Did it come? Oh. Having used so many of the Windmaster's treasures from a ray, he made sure the defense of that house was indestructible. Well, no, Your Highness. This array is impressive, steady like mountains. It feels secure. I think nothing could break in 3 days and 3 nights. It's just, I can't believe it's this place. What place? Do you recognize it? Of course I recognize it. This is the terrace of cascading wine. It's where I ascended. Is the Windmaster one of the legendary tales? The boy who carried wine? Is that it? Is that what we're doing? The terrace of cascading wine. The Windmaster seemed to have made a round of the room. That's right. I come back to this place every few decades to check up on it. I'm not mistaken. No wonder the Reverend of Empty Words knew immediately that one in the shell wasn't the real Windmaster. If it was the man himself, just by one look, he would have known it was a terrace of cascading wine, and there would be any need to look around to make sure. Ever since Ming Yi crawled out of the hole, he squatted down on the ground to start drawing an array. After a few strokes were drawn, however, he suddenly raised his hand and blasted away the array entirely. Hua Cheng's eyes immediately grew cold, and Xie Lian was also taken aback. Lord Earthmaster, what are you doing? The distance-shortening array doesn't work anymore. We have to walk over. What do you mean it doesn't work anymore? It means just now someone or something destroyed all the connection points of the distance shortening array near the terrace of cascading wine. No, the entire area's connection points have been destroyed. Not long ago, the Windmaster was clearly brought over to the terrace. It seemed that as soon as the Windmaster himself was inside the pavilion, the Reverend of Empty Words immediately reacted and tampered with the points, intentionally slowing them down. It was no different than having the paths destroyed when crossing a mountain. Now, no one could ever dream of using the distance shortening array to reach the terrace of cascading wine. If we leave now, how long will it take before we get there? An hour. Lord Windmaster, we're heading over to where you are now. Just wait until we get there. If anybody knocks, absolutely do not open the door. All right, of course. Even if you didn't say anything, I already know. Don't take me for a 3-year-old who opened the door to anybody. Now then, my lords, please hurry, okay? Fortunately, the town of Fugu and the terrace of cascading wine weren't on separate ends of the earth. They were within acceptable distance to one another. If they hurried over now, they should make it in time. The three immediately took off. On the way, Xie Lian casually tested his powers and discovered the soul-shifting spell really did burn him out quite aggressively. The powerful wave Hua Cheng had poured into him was already used up by more than half. Gege, do you need more? No, really, thanks Sanlong ever so much for being so generous earlier. You're welcome. I already said you can take as much as you want. But when Gege pays him back, can I collect some interest? Yeah. Xie Lian cleared his throat softly, thinking it was probably an issue whether he could even pay anything back at all, but of course his lips were still bold. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, I don't think you know what you're asking! I don't think you know what you're saying, Xie Lian. Although it was estimated to be an hour, the three of them weren't mortals, and it was a dire situation, so they were going faster. When they arrived, Xie Lian looked around, and sure enough, it was the same place as before. All around was a chaotic mess created by the misuse of the Windmaster's fan. The fan had refused his control and blew over trees and bushes, and he was feeling a little embarrassed. Your Highness, in which building did you set up the spiritual array? Do you remember? Of course he remembered. He was searching for it attentively. It's that small pavilion. Oh. The three walked towards the small pavilion. The closer they got, the more relaxed they became, as if they saw a ray of hope. However, when they approached, his eyes instantly shrank. The doors to that small pavilion were open, creaking eerily as they swung back and forth in the chilling night air. No! Chapter 112, doors open to greet the ghost. Drawn earth a prison. Where is he? The three entered the small pavilion, and within the building there was no one. The spiritual devices and treasures were still in the same place, but they'd become useless. Lord Windmaster, where are you? On the way over, because they were so focused on rushing, and the Windmaster was overly agitated, Xie Lian had proposed that he meditate to calm down, to stop thinking and saying nonsense, scaring himself. The Windmaster thought it made a lot of sense and stopped talking, so the lack of response wasn't out of the blue. Xie Lian hadn't noticed anything amiss, but now, no matter how he yelled, there was no answer, and a feeling of dread started to spread in his heart. In a situation like this, there could be two possibilities. Either the Windmaster was not responding on purpose, or he'd already lost consciousness. There were over 10-something spiritual devices and treasures on the Windmaster's person, each of them rare and exquisite, and they had all been used by Xie Lian to set the formation. I was afraid of that! No! There should be nothing from the outside that could break through. Even if it could be done, just the Windmaster had said, it would take at least 3 days and 3 nights, and it'd be impossible to leave the evidence of a break-in. Yet from the looks of it, the doors and windows of the small pavilion were all intact, and there were no tunnels or ladders. Xie Lian went back to the entrance and picked up the golden locket, looking it over. He really did open the doors himself. Even if the reinforcements were clearly arriving momentarily, for what reason would he seek a dead end for himself at the last minute? Maybe he thought one of us was at the door. Hearing this, an abominable image suddenly appeared in Xie Lian's mind. From outside the small pavilion came 3 individuals, each in appearance of himself, Hua Cheng and Mingyi, and they knocked on the doors. Within the pavilion, the Windmaster, overjoyed, immediately opened the door, and the 3 people surrounded him, grinning at him eerily. That's impossible. I've never heard that the Reverend of Empty Words has the ability to fake appearances. Maybe it called for helpers. Everything that we ran into today was sudden and unforeseen. Before this, we hadn't thought there'd be a need for an array to shield the Windmaster, so it too shouldn't have been able to find any ghosts to help so quickly. Besides, didn't we tell Lord Windmaster that we'd inform him in the communication array when we arrived? Whether the ones outside the doors were real or fake. It would have been easy to figure out just by asking. So how could he have been deceived so easily? Unless it was someone he knew who told him to open the doors. Someone he knew, how so? His ears were plugged. He can't hear. Well said, Song Long. It was exactly for that reason that I said it must be someone he knew, because Lord Windmaster had his ears plugged. He wouldn't have been able to hear anything from the outside unless he removed the earplugs. But would he do that? He was so terrified he'd die before he would. So to deceive him and have him open the door, there was only one way it could be done. The private communication array. Which meant while we were coming, there was someone who secretly connected with the Lord Windmaster and told him something that made him open the doors on his own. If it wasn't someone he was close to, they wouldn't have known Lord Windmaster's verbal password. The verbal passwords of heavenly officials are all closely guarded secrets, not to be known by outsiders, and especially not to demons and monsters the like of the Reverend of Empty Words. It shouldn't be someone he trust. It should have been someone he trusted deeply. Otherwise, he would have opened the doors without thinking. Or he didn't know this person, but this person knew him and gave him a reason he couldn't refuse, giving him no choice but to open the doors. Technically, we can send messages to Lord Windmaster as long as we have the verbal password, but to have a strange voice suddenly speak, wouldn't Lord Windmaster think it's weird? He should have told us in the communication array the moment he heard. Unless this mysterious individual who sent the private communication paralyzed him with the first message, but what could that message be? A threat? How could it threaten? If you don't come out, I'll tell your brother I've returned to harass you? Not likely. The Reverend of Empty Words shouldn't be aware of the Windmaster's concerns. Besides, it wasn't a heavenly official, so how could it let the Watermaster know immediately of its existence? Reinforcements would arrive within the hour, but the Windmaster couldn't even wait that long. At the end of the day, whether the creature could win against the Watermaster was another matter entirely. It bore mentioning that it should never have harassed Shiwudu. It only had eyes for the Windmaster, picking especially at low-hanging fruit. No doubt the Reverend itself was scared of the Watermaster, so it wouldn't have provoked him directly. Search for another hour. All right, if we still can't find him after an hour, no matter how much the Lord Windmaster protests, the Watermaster must be informed. Let's break up. We'll search this way, and Lord Earthmaster, please search over there. So they broke up the thing with this mystery, MXTX. There's no response whatsoever. The dread in his mind was growing heavier. He searched chamber after chamber of every wing in the entire pavilion, and was almost through all the pavilions, and there was no traces at all. Soon after, the two came to the tallest pavilion in the area. The pavilion was obviously the star of its surroundings, the centerpiece. It was renovated multiple times, glamorous and impressive, with a number of poetry verses written on the walls. He looked at the establishment plaque, the Terrace of Cascading Wine. Is it the young lord who poured wine? That's right. This is the original address to the young lord who poured wine. So it really is related. Yeah, Hua Cheng replied, then briefly gave an account. Turns out, in the legends, they said that when the Windmaster was still mortal, after training he would often come into this place to drink, spread out drunkenly upon the terrace, happy and carefree. One day, below the deck came a malicious crook who often bullied the good villagers. When Shi Qingshang saw him, he nonchalantly spilled the delicate wine from his cup and cast a tiny spell. The wine spilt right over the crook's head and knocked him out. After the Windmaster was appointed deputy general by Shiwudu, he still loved the mortal realm and continued to drink endlessly at this place like before. The day he ascended was also when he was here drinking. To ascend while drinking sounded absurd, but it wasn't anything of the sort. Sometimes opportunities come knocking without any rhyme or reason. Xie Lian himself was still sleeping when he ascended. Perhaps in the future there would be a heavenly official who would ascend while they were in the bathroom, which might be a very well-renowned sight too. I'm sure Junwoo would love to show up at your bathroom to appoint you. In any case, stories of scholars teasing guests had always been popular throughout history, and places that had these stories would always incite the urge for intellectuals to raise their brush and create, especially their yearning for a heavenly lifestyle. Xie Lian now understood that this place was one such landmark. There were no tourists in the middle of the night, but the next day there would for sure be many tourists who would discover, astonished, that the houses and trees had been blown away, and cry that the Windmaster had shown up. However, the renowned sight of the young lord who poured wine was slightly different than Xie Lian had imagined. Just then he heard Hua Cheng say darkly, Gege, I need to take care of something small. Please be careful. I won't be long. Take care of what? He said mentally. When he recalled Hua Cheng's angry voice in a private communication array, and now his unfeeling demeanor, he asked, "Are you going to find that Reverend of Empty Words?" "No." If it wasn't that, then it wasn't his place to ask any more. "You were only here for fun anyway. Since something's come up, just go. You take care of yourself, too." When I come back, I'll tell you something." "What?" "Oh, damn it, MXTX, how dare you? How dare you? What? What? Oh. But Hua Cheng's figure had already disappeared. After an hour, there was still nothing, and Xie Lian called out in the communication array, "Lord Earthmaster, how are things on your side? I haven't found him here, so I'm coming back." "Nothing," Ming Yi answered. "This won't do. I can't hold back any longer. Let's meet up at the center of the Terrace of Cascading Wine. I'm going to report to the Lord Watermaster right now." Oh. After that, he immediately mouthed Ling Wen's verbal password to her communication array. "Ling Wen, are you there? Can you find Lord Watermaster? Please tell him to come meet at the Terrace of Cascading Wine at the earliest notice." The clear voice of a man rang next to his ears. It seemed that at this moment Ling Wen was in his male form. "Your Highness, Lord Watermaster is here with me right now. He's not someone who likes going out, so he probably won't descend. What business do you have with him? I can pass on the message." Just then, Xie Lian had almost reached the main building of the Terrace of Cascading Wine and saw from afar the terrace. It seemed to be hung with something. It looked like a white cloth, swinging in the night breeze. Was there something here before? Oh. When he walked closer, he saw what it was. It was the Windmaster's outer robe. Just then, Ming Yi roared in the communication array, "Your Highness, come immediately to the tallest pavilion at the Terrace of Cascading Wine. Hurry! Your Highness, are you still there? Oh my God. Please have him descend as soon as possible. Something's happened to the Lord Windmaster." "No! Oh my God! No! You should have gone first!" After shouting the last message, he charged the pavilion. There were no more sounds from the other end. Ling Wen was probably shocked by his message and went reporting to Shi Wudu. When Xie Lian made it to the tallest floor, at the center of the floor there lay a person, and it was the Windmaster. The Windmaster had both eyes tightly closed, and there was no external injuries on his person, and no traces of blood. Another person was helping him, and it was Ming Yi. The Windmaster was propped up, unconscious, and something fell from his chest. Xie Lian fixed his eyes and felt his heart tighten. It was the Windmaster fan, and it was split in half. That rare spiritual device could only be possessed by chance and not by force. It might not even be forged after hundreds of years. It was the Windmaster's #1 spiritual device, and yet it was destroyed just like that. When we came by here now, there was no one else. But just as the words left his mouth, he realized something was amiss. Earlier, when he and Hua Cheng came by, there were plenty of poetry verses on the wall by the literary guests, some charming, some arrogant, some elegant, but now they were all gone, as if someone had wiped them clean, leaving behind a phrase that didn't exist before in crimson script. It was a row of large words dripping in blood, wretched beginning, wretched end. It was the curse of the Reverend of Empty Words bestowed on the Windmaster on the day of his birth. No! Just then, Ming Yi said frigidly, "Your Highness, where's the one that was with you?" San Long left at such an inopportune moment. Oh my God. The moment he left his side, something happened to the Windmaster. This really couldn't be explained clearly. However, Xie Lian showed nothing on his face. I asked him to go search for the Reverend of Empty Words. When did he leave? Just now. He hasn't been gone for an instant's time. Oh my gosh, what? Truthfully, it was way longer than that. However, Xie Lian himself never doubted Hua Cheng, so he wouldn't let anyone have the chance to doubt either, lest more issues arise. Well, this is just, oh my God. Just then, from beyond the skies came waves of rolling thunder. A golden carriage of 8 wheels broke through the clouds, driving towards them with an imposing aura. Oh my God. Unable to reach the Terrace of Cascading Wine using the distance shortening array, it seemed that Shi Wudu went straight for a golden carriage instead. It must be known that when a golden carriage of burnished horses was driven, it was a huge fanfare. If it should be seen by mortals who were stargazing in the middle of the night, it would be an uproar in the mortal realm. The water tyrant really wasn't afraid of anything. Watching the dramatic golden carriage approach, Xie Lian immediately said, "Lord Earthmaster, if any heavenly officials should ask later, please don't say a word about Lord Hua. There are many heavenly officials in the heavenly court who like to exaggerate and make up stories. This affair has nothing to do with him, so there's no need to make it complicated. Ming-Yi giving him a look saying, very well, like, oh my god! He agreed easily and looked down to keep checking the Windmaster's condition. He let out a breath of relief, and then seeing the unmoving Windmaster, his heart sank once more. The golden carriage came roaring, and soon after, it landed with trails of propitious clouds. Outside the carriage were a small number of junior heavenly officials standing at the ready to serve, and 3 grand heavenly officials exited the vehicle. Oh my god, it was Shi Wudu, Pei Ming, and Ling Wen. 3 of the top 10 at the Mid-Autumn Banquet had come all at once. Of course, Xie Lian had long forgotten that he himself sat at the head of the top 10. Shi Wudu had deeply knitted brows, sweeping his sleeves as he got off the carriage with a frown. He entered the pavilion with his Watermaster fan in hand, and Pei Ming Lingwen followed right behind. The moment he saw his younger brother lying on the ground like a corpse, his face changed and he rushed over. Oh, Xingshang, what happened? Lord Windmaster has run into the Reverend of Empty Words. What did you say? The Reverend of Empty Words. Hearing that name, not only did Shi Wudu, but Pei Ming and Ling Wen's faces dropped too. It seemed they already knew of Shi Wudu's scourge. Watching their expressions, Xie Lian couldn't tell who was faking and who was secretly delighted. They were all acting naturally. Especially Shi Wudu, there was definitely no way he was acting. Ling Wen retrieved a bunch of bottles from his sleeves. Try feeding him all of them. It's you again, Your Highness. It can't be helped! There's only so many of us going back and forth in the heavens! Seems every time we see you, that other one is always around too. I wonder if it's the same case this time. No, of course not. He was lying through his teeth, but Ming-Yi actually kept his promise and didn't utter a word. Pei Ming stopped talking, waved his hand, and led the officials under his command to search the premises. Given the situation, it was actually better that Hua Cheng had left beforehand. At least he wasn't the scene of the crime. Shi Wudu couldn't wake the Windmaster, but his eyes inadvertently swept over the giant bloody words on the snow-white wall, and his face twisted immediately. Who wrote this? Who wrote this? Even though he was shouting, his voice was trembling. Lord Windmaster's awake! Lord Windmaster, oh! Xingshang, are you all right? Do you feel bad anywhere? Who hurt you? The Windmaster was dazed for a good while before he came to. When he became conscious... Oh no, the first thing he did was shove him away, grabbed his own head, and screamed. Oh no! Because this was what he feared. This is what the Reverend of Empty Words told him. No! Oh no! Why? 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 No! You damn it! You can't! No! No! We can't end it now! It makes TXY! Oh, damn it! MXTX, what we doing? What we doing? Why are we having all of these cliffhangers back to back? My soul can't take it. I know that everybody watching this video that's read this book is like, ha ha ha, this whole thing's cliffhangers. And I'm like, ah. So yeah, at the very end of the chapters, the thing that the Windmaster wanted the least, was to have all their loved ones, and Pei Ming and Ling Wen, in one area at the same time. And it's just, oh man, that terror, right? But there's so much mystery in these chapters, and there's so many things. And before I start talking, I will say, I'm probably going to posit some theories that are going to be right, are going to be wrong, are going to be way off the mark. We will find out the answers in this book. We just got to get there, right? So grab your popcorn and your drink and just write down how wrong I am, so that when we get to the point where I'm proven wrong, y'all can say, I was going to tell you way back in part 33 that wasn't right. That's fine. But I had to go get I had volume 4 anyway, but I also had to go get volume 1. We're going back to volume 1 stuff, because MXTX is weaving, I feel like Charlie Day off It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, being like weaving this tapestry of craziness. But we only get one picture in the said chapters, which is a shame, but it is a mighty good one. It's of Hua Cheng. Hua Cheng has completely destroyed the Earthmaster. There they be, sunk in the ground, poor thing. And Xie Lian's just like, oh. Hua Cheng's like, don't leave me, Gege. Hua Cheng was rather mysterious in this set of chapters. Rather mysterious. Something's going on. Something's about to happen. And I feel like something's about to go down. And I feel like that Hua Cheng wanted to get away from the situation before it happened, but also has something else in mind. We'll talk through it. But I had to go back to volume 1, which we'll touch base on, to get the 4 tales. We're getting stuff filled in. We're getting gaps filled in, which is exciting, right? So, we need to go through this chapter and just talk about the stuff that is happening, right? So the Windmaster does not. So yeah, as the Windmaster is taken away, all these people start showing up saying, it's really appeared. It really appeared. The monsters have come. Like, there's ghosts mingled in with the cosplayers. It's chaos. I'm glad they got away from that, because I was like, this is getting to be too much. I was like, MXTX, we got to get away from all this madness of this parade. It's insane. And Ming Yi is like, I got lost. There was an ambush and I chose to save the people over saving a friend. That's something that's interesting. We'll note about some things about where everybody is at mentally in this section here. So we're going to have put the Windmaster on here. Old Shi Q, and then Xie Lian and Hua Cheng. Because everybody's acting kind of weird in this. We need to make note about it. And then I'll put the 4 fantastic tales over here. So Ming Yi makes the choice. He chooses to save the crowd, but in doing so loses the Windmaster. Which I do think that says something, that the Earthmaster, despite being the Windmaster's best friend, still knew that the Windmaster, no matter what the situation, would have wanted him to save the people versus the one in that situation. It shows the Earthmaster has some faith in the Windmaster and their skills, but also did the right thing in saving the majority of the people. It just kind of sucks because it leads them on this big old goose chase, right? And we also want to let note here, the Windmaster laughs when nervous. Which I'm sure now, if we go back and look at all the volume, like volume 2, 3, and 4, when the Windmaster's present, all those times that they were like laughing, I'm like, were they nervous that whole time? Like, that brings up a whole new thing to light. Like, have they been nervous this entire period? And we just didn't realize it, but the moment that they were like laughing uncontrollably and saying, if anything happens to this Windmaster, I'll become a supreme ghost and haunt you. I was like, the moment that was happening, I thought the Windmaster was possessed by the Reverend of Empty Words. I thought the Reverend had possessed the Windmaster and was like making him say these things. But that doesn't really make sense, because the Reverend doesn't want to possess the prey. It wants to feed off of their fear. And if it possesses the prey, then it's not going to be afraid. So it's much better to just scare them, right? And the idea that the Windmaster is just so out of sorts. They can't see, they can't hear, they can't really feel anything. It's like they're so terrified at this moment of this thing that they can't do anything, right? And Xie Lian's like, did you open your mouth? Did you say anything? And they're like, no, I haven't done anything. It's just taken me away. And that is really scary. The idea of something taking you away that's a monster, that's a ghost, that you don't know what it looks like. And Xie Lian's like, well, if you open your eyes, what do you think would happen? And the Windmaster's like, I will die. Like, not even, Xie Lian's like, I wonder if they'll be able to hang on. The Windmaster's like, nope. Like, that's just how bad it is. They're like, he's like, and I love that Xie Lian tries to calm down the Windmaster, being like, take deep breaths. We're here for you. Everything's all right. Don't be scared. Like Xie Lian is being so kind and considerate. And it's like, everything's going to be all right. And the Windmaster's just like, like absolutely losing it. Right? So Xie Lian is trying to calm down the Windmaster, trying their best, right? And it's just not going to plan, right? It's not going very well. And so Xie Lian's like, okay, well, can we do anything? And then Xie Lian realizes that the Windmaster would probably die of fright, and that's exactly what the Reverend of Empty Words wants. They want to scare the Windmaster as much as they can, which will beg the question, what did they do to get inside the house? And again, we can't find out until next week. So I'm like, I hate it. I hate that the cliffhanger, we don't get to find out how they got in the first place. But there's a bunch of mysterious circumstances, so we're going to have to wait and go back to that. But yeah, so Xie Lian's like, well, just keep your eyes closed. And so they try to figure out what direction they went in. No help. The Windmaster was too freaked out to even think about it. It thought that Ming Yi had them, so they weren't paying attention. And so, can we talk about the idea of Hua Cheng during this entire situation? This is a dire situation. The Windmaster has been taken away by this monster, by this ghost that is very threatening and dangerous to him. We don't know where he is. We don't know what direction they went in. We have no idea. Ming Yi's freaking out. Xie Lian's freaking out. The Windmaster's freaking out. They're all trying to save face. And the moment that Xie Lian looks over to check on Hua Cheng has just been bored to the point where they're changing his looks every 5 seconds. He's having a RuPaul Drag Race run show during the whole episode of that's playing while they're trying to figure out what's going on. So Hua Cheng is so bored. He is so bored that he's changing outfits. And the question is Hua Cheng trying, to play ultimate Supreme Ghost Advocate? Was Hua Cheng trying to diffuse the situation and diffuse the tension by adding some levity and changing his outfits every 5 minutes? I'm probably stretching it just a bit to get to that point, but I would like to think that. Sure. Or at least to make Xie Lian feel better. He doesn't care about Ming Yi or the Windmaster, but to make Xie Lian feel better. And so Xie Lian, the worst part is that the Xie Lian, in the midst of all this panic, actually gets distracted and is like, oh, that outfit's not that bad. That actually looks really good. It's like, Xie Lian, eyes up here. Pay attention. Your best friend's about to die. Potentially. You need to keep track. Oh my God. But I cannot imagine how this would look in the Donghua of just every time Xie Lian turns around, Hua Cheng has a different look, different accessories, all these different things. And he's like, oh, no, okay. Xie Lian's like, gotta focus. My boyfriend looks hot, but I gotta focus on the situation. He's like, we've got to figure out where they are. And that's when they realize that they've probably used the communication array, the distance, not the communication array, but the distance shortening array to get to a new place. And so Xie Lian's like, well, we don't even know where they are. And so here's the thing that's this is the problem, right? Is that Xie Lian then panic later on. Xie Lian, he wants to get the Watermaster involved. He's like, we need to tell your brother what's going on. But the Windmaster does not want Shi Wudu there. And the scary thing is, it's for the exact same reason that Xie Lian ended up not wanting Hua Cheng there, right? That's the thing. The Windmaster does not want Wudu there because as soon as he shows up, that's when the Reverend says something bad's going to happen. And he's like, I don't want to be jinxed. I don't want my brother to be in danger. And so that's why he told Xie Lian, under no circumstances can his brother know what's going on. But then when Xie Lian switches bodies with the Windmaster and is about to ask Hua Cheng to come, the Reverend mentions that something bad will happen to Hua Cheng, and Xie Lian panics the same exact way because they both Windmaster loves his brother, and Xie Lian loves Hua Cheng. They don't want to risk anything bad happening. But the problem is, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. And the Windmaster's like, no, my brother's third heavenly calamity is coming soon. It's huge. You can't be bothered with it. So, and then Ming Yi is like, if this keeps up, keep this up and I'll make you go through a trial right now. Ming Yi's like, come on. He's like, no, we gotta get your brother involved. Let's not try to beat around the bush anymore. So Ming Yi, I want to make note here. Oh, I've got Ming Yi already up there. Ming Yi, let's make note. He has no qualms about getting the Watermaster involved. He has no qualms about involving the Watermaster. Yeah, because Ming Yi at the end of the day cares about the Windmaster. So he's like, I don't care about your brother's heavenly calamities. I don't care about these trials and tribulations. They'll be fine. We need to get him involved. And he's like, if you don't, try to help us out, we're going to get him involved whether you like it or not. But the Windmaster said, no, and I mean it. So I'm afraid, what I'm afraid of is that the Windmaster seeing her brother there, seeing his brother there, is going to get mad at Xie Lian, being like, I told you not to call him. And Xie Lian's going to be like, we don't know what to do. And is the Windmaster going to out that Hua Cheng was there? Because Ming Yi's agreed not to say anything, but the Windmaster doesn't know. So yeah. And so Ming Yi has been very compliant in these chapters. I feel like Ming Yi doesn't want to cause any drama. Ming Yi's been through enough already. They're like, you know what? I'm going to raise fuss, but if you really don't want me to say anything, fine, I won't. And so they try to figure out where he is, and nothing that they're saying is of any help. And so Xie Lian's like, what do we do? And so Xie Lian, here's the thing. He looks over to Hua Cheng. He's like, Hua Cheng's been next to them the entire time. But he only came for entertainment. He has no attachment to the Windmaster. And he has no reason to help a heavenly official. And so Xie Lian doesn't want to trouble him. He doesn't... Let me get this right. He doesn't want to ask for Hua Cheng's help. He feels like he's already drugged Hua Cheng there against his will to begin with. He doesn't really want to overstretch his boundaries. But I'm also kind of like, you really could have used Hua Cheng earlier on to really get to the bottom of this if you wanted to. But, okay. I see why you didn't, right? And it would be weird for Heavenly Official to ask a ghost for help. And even Hua Cheng doesn't seem to know exactly what to do. He's like, well, the Reverend of Empty Words is really strong. I don't really know how much I can help you, but I'll come along too, just for funsies. And Hua Cheng immediately knows what Xie Lian is going to do. That he's going to do the soul shifting spell. And so that's the thing. And Hua Cheng does not like it. Hua Cheng wants to keep at Xie Lian's side, which makes his disappearance later all the weirder, but we'll get to it. But he wants to say Xie Lian's side. He's like, no. He's like, why are you switching places with the Windmaster? And he's like, this is all I gotta do. And Ming Yi's like, do it. And Hua Cheng's like, please reconsider. Like, come on. And so Xie Lian's like, no, I gotta do this. And so they shift, but he can't quite see what it is in front of him. And then his immediate response upon seeing the Reverend of Empty Words is just to kick the shit out of it. Like 30 times. Just to keep kicking it. He's like, their souls had only been switched and they had to adjust. And so the Windmaster's like, I'll tell you how to use all of my weapons. Like, I'll give you all the details, all the passwords. And then I like that the Windmaster's like, I'll also let you transform into a woman. And Xie Lian's like, no! Xie Lian is determined to stay a man. He's like, I'm a man, damn it. I don't want to turn into a lady. No. But also, he doesn't want to use up all that spiritual energy turning into the female form too, I'm sure. And so Hua Cheng, I like that Hua Cheng is nervous at this point because he's not around Xie Lian. He doesn't know where Xie Lian's at. That's like, Hua Cheng gets nervous because he's like, I don't know where Xie Lian is at. I don't like this. I need to find out where Gege is. I've been following him this whole... That's the thing. I'm sure he's been following Xie Lian this entire series and has known where he has been at. And this is the first time in a while he hasn't known where he's at. And he's a little freaked out by it. And so he's like, I need you to tell me where you are. And Ming Yi is like, no, tell me what's fighting you. And it's not really good either way. He's like, either way, I can't really see what's in front of me. There are trees and stuff. He's like, but I don't, and there's a black mist surrounding the Reverend of Empty Words. So he's like, I really can't help in either sense. And so he has the fan of the Windmaster, but the problem is he doesn't know how to properly use it. And so he's like, there's a whirlwind, it breaks up trees, it like shoots things all around, it messes stuff up. And he's like, he's like, I've thrown things off course. He's like, this just hasn't gone well for him. It's like he's not able to properly use the spiritual device and they're not easy to manipulate. So he's like, he ends up doing more harm than good using it. And so I like the Windmaster's like, what are you doing? Why are you waving it around and using it as a sword? I like that he uses the fan as a sword to fight the Reverend of Empty Words. And the Windmaster's like, it's not supposed to be used like that. It's hilarious. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm a martial god. I can't help it. Bad habit. It's all the same. And at this point, Hua Cheng is like, Gege, like, you're not answering my question. Where are you? Quit swinging the fan around like a sword and tell me where you're at. But he's like, I don't know what to tell you. And so the Reverend of Empty Words is very powerful, realizes very quickly that it's not Xie Lian, that it's not the Wind Master, and starts to pry. And Xie Lian's like, yeah, I've got to keep going because this thing is smart and it's figuring me out. So he just keeps beating it up. And it tells him he's going to fall down. But this part was kind of like, it was both kind of inspiring but heartbreaking at the same time. Because he tells Xie Lian he's going to fall down and he's going to be defeated in battle. But Xie Lian's like, bitch, I've been beaten in battle so many times, I don't even care. Like, Xie Lian, anything that happens to Xie Lian, he doesn't care. Like, he's like, you can hurt me 1,000 times over, it's not going to affect me. He's like, I've been defeated 800 years ago. He's like, a few more times means nothing. How much more can I be defeated? Like, that part, it's kind of powerful in a way, because he's like, just give up, nothing you say to me is going to work. But then you're like, when you realize why it's not going to work, it's like, well, damn it, Xie Lian. Yeah, it's cool that you have all this assertiveness to you, but it's founded on the fact that you've been defeated so many times. What's a few more? And it's heartbreaking. And then Xie Lian realizes that, Hua Cheng says, Gege, if you can't determine your location, fan up a whirlwind and I'll know where you are. And he's about to do that when the Reverend says, is someone coming? And that gets Xie Lian's attention. He's like, you'll watch the person you seek, coming to seek you, die before you. And Xie Lian's like, oh. But then he realizes, he's like, well, Hua Cheng's already dead, so it doesn't matter. But just the thought of someone he cares about suffering, that sparks fear. And so that's kind of the thing is that there is a fear sparked from losing Hua Cheng. That is going to open up a can of worms, because from there on, from that moment on, the moment Xie Lian admits to himself that he doesn't want to see Hua Cheng hurt and doesn't want to entertain the notion that he could be hurt, even though it's not physically possible, from that point on, things are going to start getting interesting, I feel, because there's things developed from this moment that I'm like, oh no, Xie Lian, like things are, love makes things a little bit tangled, right? So we're going to put mystery things up here, and we're going to put the 4 tails down here, okay? So we're going to do that. So yeah, so he just the idea, and him yelling to the Reverend of Empty Words to tell him to shut up, and just like kicks him even more and bashes his head in. Like, Xie Lian gets kind of violent in this moment at the thought of Hua Cheng getting hurt. So yeah, so I'm going to put up here, Xie Lian getting violent with the Reverend of Empty Words over the fact of Hua Cheng being threatened. Basically, don't threaten these two and their lovers, because you threaten Hua Cheng and Xie Lian will probably kick your face in. You threaten Xie Lian, Hua Cheng will probably do unspeakable things to you that nobody wants to know about. So, there we go. But he ends up, like, and then of course Hua Cheng comes in and says, is something wrong? Is everything okay? And Xie Lian's like, it's nothing, I didn't say anything. And so it's like, it's seeking its own death. Tell me now and I'll go straight over. And he says, no need to come over. Absolutely do not come over. And that's when the Wind Master says, did you guys really exchange verbal passwords secretly? Like, Your Highness, did you not notice? You've got the wrong array. Xie Lian has been talking, Hua Cheng has been talking privately to Xie Lian this whole time, but Xie Lian's answers has been going to the reply all. Xie Lian's been replying all, Hua Cheng has been just replying, and so it's like, Wind Master's like, oh, so you guys did have a secret private array. Cool. Well, you're not talking in it, so we're only hearing your answers, but not what Hua Cheng's asking you. Which Xie Lian doesn't say anything there that would give hint that Hua Cheng's doing anything malicious, so that's fine. But then Xie Lian's realized that he's been exposed, that they'd shared private communication array passwords and have been secretly talking to one another this entire time. Awesome. Awesome, right? Cool. And Xie Lian's like, well, it's nothing. He's like, give me an instant's time, half an instant's time, I'll be able to take care of this thing. And then they switch back while, you know, the Reverend of Empty Words is kind of detained. And so what's funny is that as the Windmaster is telling Xie Lian about switching back, he looks over to Hua Cheng, and Hua Cheng has completely knocked Ming Yi into the ground, which is the picture that's in the book. And he's like, and so the funny thing about this is well, not funny actually, but the thing about it is Hua Cheng is so mad. He is so mad, he vents his anger. He vents his anger at Ming Yi, but he can't hit Xie Lian. That sets up something too. So it's the idea he can't even hit someone that looks like Xie Lian. That's the problem. That kind of like, it makes me think back to the whole, like, not Land of the Lustrous, but makes me think back to the whole the flower scene where the flower demons took on the form of Xie Lian, and young Hua Cheng was like, I don't want to attack that. Back when they were in the cave, you know, I cannot think of the name of it for the life of me, but you all will comment down below what I'm talking about. But the idea that he's so mad in that moment that he cannot take his anger out on the Windmaster because he's in Xie Lian's body and he doesn't want to hurt Xie Lian's body, so he takes it out on Ming Yi instead. I feel bad for Ming Yi. Ming Yi's been accused. Ming Yi has been pursued. Ming Yi has had so much shit happen to him, and he's like, I just wanted to eat food and hang out with my BFF, and I've been through the ringer, y'all. And I like that the Windmaster, when they're switching with Xie Lian's like, are you going to be okay? And they're like, yes, I can still run away. So they convince him to build a protection array to protect him while they come and find him. And here's the sad thing, is that the Windmaster, they have all these treasures. And the moment that I was reading that, I was like, oh no, the Watermaster has given the Windmaster all these treasures, like talismans to protect him. The moment that Xie Lian tells the Windmaster to use them all for the protection array, then they don't have them on their person anymore. They can't be protected. So that would make it all too easy for the Reverend of Empty Words to swoop in. So it's kind of like Xie Lian was saving the Windmaster, but also put them in like the most vulnerable position in that one moment. And I'm like, it hurt reading that, because it's like, you know, Xie Lian doesn't really have a choice. He's thinking of the Windmaster, but like that put them in such a bad position, taking all those talismans off, and now that left them open for the Reverend to come in. But yeah, so these extremely rare treasures, as expected of the God of Wealth, as expected of the younger brother of the Watermaster. Yeah, the Watermaster has become the way that they are to protect their brother, right? I mean, that is very apparent. By the end of this chapter, it is very apparent Xi Wudu is like, protecting his brother is like top priority, right? And so the Windmaster, I like the Windmaster when they say like, oh, thank you for protecting me. You're too reliable. Thank you. From day onwards, you're my second best friend. Ming Yi's still the best friend, but Xie Lian is the second best friend. Now, I don't know if that's going to still be the case once the Windmaster realized that Xie Lian called the Watermaster there. May not be the case anymore, but... And Xie Lian's like, I don't know how to respond, if I should laugh or cry, so thank you. And so, yeah. They take the golden locket, wrapped it around the door latch, use the blood to build the soul shifting spell to build the blood array, and then use the soul shifting spell to return. And God, the moment he comes back and Hua Cheng's like, Gege, you better explain yourself. And the thing of it is, he never does. Xie Lian does not explain himself. He doesn't explain. So that's something here too. So we're going to left mystery and unanswered questions. That Xie Lian, he did not say why he refused Hua Cheng. Because he said you cannot come no matter what. And Hua Cheng's like, why? And so he has not said why. I'm hoping that eventually that will come out in the wash and Xie Lian will be able to tell Hua Cheng. But Hua Cheng asks him here, and instead, he's like, where's the Earthmaster? And he's like, who knows? It's just like there's a human-shaped crater in the ground, and Ming Yi is crawling out of the hole. And so then, the Windmaster says in the communication array, like, this place does feel secure. I don't think anything could break in here within several days, but this is the Terrace of Cascading Wine, where I ascended. So we have the four tails. I'm going to bring this up. We have the four tails. And at this point, we now know who two of them are. So we had the prince who pleased God, who ascended in their sleep. Ascended in sleep. And that is Xie Lian. And we also have the Lord who poured wine. And basically poured it on the town loser. And we'll put ascended drinking. And that was the Windmaster. So we have two left. And I had to go back to volume 1. There's a lot of stuff in this volume that's coming back to play, right? I had to go back to the chapter, and it is the chapter 5, the red clad, like 50 chapters ago, the red clad ghost, right? Or it's chapter 5 in the English translation. It's probably more chapters from there, but it is Xie Lian only knows of the four famous tales. And so they are the four famous tales referred to the extravagant stories and deeds of four gods prior to their ascension. So we have Xie Lian, the prince who pleased God. Put that in there. The Lord who poured wine. The general who snapped his sword. And the princess who slit her throat. So yeah. So what's interesting about this is the idea having one name among the four tales did not necessarily indicate they were the strongest, but simply they were the most well-known and most spoken of. So that's the thing that's kind of crazy about this is we don't know who the other two are yet. I kind of have an idea of who the general who snapped his sword is, although because we have the prince who pleased God. Well, the prince is Xie Lian. We have a lord, which is the Windmaster. The Windmaster was the son of a wealthy merchant lord. Makes sense. Then we have a general and a princess. The princess is the one I have no clue about. I don't want to know yet. Maybe we've already met them. Is it? But Ling Wen doesn't seem like a princess, so I'm gonna say no on that one. But I don't know. I don't have any guesses as to this one yet. So don't ask me my theories, because it's like maybe Ling Wen, but I don't think so. No. So I'm like, I don't think about that one. We'll just wait and see on that. We'll just hold off on the princess who slit her throat. We'll wait on that one. The general who snapped their sword, if we're going by the logic of we have Prince Xie Lian, we have the Lord Windmaster when they were a kid. I mean, General Pei would be like the most obvious one, and they're the most well-known in the heavenly realm. Well, Xie Lian is one of the most well-known for reasons. The Windmaster is social with everyone and is everybody's best friend, so of course they're well-known. I'm gonna guess Pei Ming is this one, but I don't know, only because they're like General Pei. That seems, and he's well-known in the heavenly realm, so I don't know, we don't know the story behind these two yet. We've not learned it yet, but I'm gonna say snapped his sword, broke his dick. From too much sex. That's what we can say that. I'm really hoping that's not a sexual innuendo and it's actually something legit, but could be. But the princess who slit her throat is pretty somber, is pretty solemn and grim. And we don't really know we don't even really know any female deities except for Ling Wen in the heavenly realm. So I'm going to just put a big question mark on this one, right? And just be like, eh. So what's interesting though is that we have kind of correlated here. We have four supreme ghosts, right? Four supreme ghosts that kind of align with this. So the prince who pleased God, we have kind of, we have Qi Rong maybe perhaps that's in line with that. We have Qi Rong, but also that's kind of weird because at first when I started reading the series, when we got these chapters in volume 1, I was like, oh, well, each of the four supreme ghosts will align with the four tales. But honestly, the way it's worked so far is that so far we've had Qi Rong and Bai Wusheng associated with the prince who pleased God. Both of those two supreme ghosts, well, and Hua Cheng, and possibly the Blackwater, if you believe the Long Ying theory. So, yeah, actually all of them could have been involved in that. I used to think that it was each supreme ghost would align with one of these four, But I don't know if that's the case, right? I don't know if that's the case. Unless, because our supreme ghosts are Qi-Rong, are the Blackwater, Hua Cheng, and Bai Wusheng, right? I just don't know. I'm not sold that the 4 calamities are going to go with the 4 tails. I think they are 2 separate things, right? Because they even made note in volume 1. They're like, don't think that these 2 are going to correlate, because like Qi-Rong, for example, is not even a supreme. They're just a savage that associates with them out of notoriety. So yeah, it's easy as, I don't think we can equate those together. But we definitely know who 2 of the 4 tails are for sure now. We know that Xie Lian and the Windmaster are tied together. I think Pei Ming is the general who snapped a sword. No clue about the princess. We'll just leave those. We'll leave those until we find out more, right? But yeah, we find out about the terrace of cascading wine, and that's where they ascended. And so they try to use a distance shortening array to get to them, and it doesn't work anymore, which is very frustrating that it does not work. They're like, we can't get there because the Reverend of Empty Words has destroyed any connection points all around the pavilion. This Reverend of Empty Words is insanely intelligent, right? Insanely intelligent. Because they not only were able to like somehow get in to get to the Windmaster, but they destroyed any connection point to where the Reverend of Empty Words would be able to see any attack coming. There's no way to ambush and just pop into existence. You have to get there on foot. The Reverend of Empty Words could easily see when something was coming at him. So it's very intelligent and making it very difficult to be able to ambush and attack it. So they say they have to go an hour, and so they all leave town on foot. And the problem is that they told the Windmaster was panicking. They're like, just meditate and be quiet and it'll be fine. And then when they didn't hear anything anymore, they just assumed that that's what the Windmaster was doing. But it wasn't. So as they go, Xie Lian starts testing their powers and realizes that he has about half of the power Hua Cheng gave him left. So Xie Lian still has half of Hua Cheng's power that was given. So that is good to know. There's still, Xie Lian's got some spiritual energy, not a lot, and Hua Cheng offers more to Xie Lian, but of course Xie Lian is super polite and it's like, oh no, I'm fine. And I'm like, I would have taken some more. But he says, you're welcome. As I said, you can take as much as you want. And then he says half jokingly, but when you pay me back, can I collect some interest? I'm like, how much interest are we talking about, Hua Cheng? And Xie Lian, who is like over his head, he was like, oh, sure. I'm like, dude, when he comes to collect, it's not going to be good, Xie Lian. It's not going to be good. So they managed to get there, and everything's chaotic because of the Windmaster's fan knocking everything over. But then when they walk to the small pavilion, they realize that the doors are open and something has already gotten inside. So here's where things get weird, right? Chapter 112 is where things get really weird. Because Xie Lian's like, where are they? They enter the small pavilion, and within the building, there's no one there. The spiritual devices and treasures are in the same place. Only once the doors were opened, they became useless, right? And so he's like, Windmaster, where have you gone? And so at this point, because they're focused and rushing, they had told the Windmaster to be quiet. And so either the Windmaster wasn't responding on purpose or they'd lost consciousness. So there's like 10-something spiritual devices and treasures on the ground, useless now. There should be nothing from the outside that could easily break through. Xie Lian went back to the entrance and picked up the golden locket. He opened the doors himself. So the Windmaster he opened the doors. Something made him open the doors. But why? And what? So again, why did the Windmaster open the doors? What made him do it, right? What could have made him do it? And so he's like, maybe he thought one of us was at the doors. But I'm like, that seems like the Windmaster. Why would they do that when he knows how dire it is not to do it? And he's like, we could have talked to him in the private communication array. He should have asked us first. How did the Reverend of Empty Words convince him in the array? Like, what did he say? Of course, we're going to find out next chapter. But I'm like, something was said that made the Windmaster open up the doors. What was it? And my first thought when they said that he was deceived easily and that was it someone he knew was, did the Reverend of Empty Words like imitate the Watermaster's voice and said it was the Watermaster? Did that get him to open up? And so Hua Cheng's like, well, you couldn't have heard unless it was through the communication array. So what ended up happening? How did he respond to the door? What was it? Can the Reverend of Empty Words imitate voices? He's like, he had no choice but to open up the door. And Hua Cheng and Ming Yi wonder if it was a threat. Like, could someone have threatened him? But Xie Lian's like, the Reverend of Empty Words seems to be afraid of the Watermaster. So there's no way you could threaten the Watermaster. So that wouldn't have worked. So they're kind of just at a loss and they're stumped. Like, what ended up happening? So they looked around. If we can't find him in an hour, then we're going to contact the Watermaster. And so Ming Yi turned around and left without a word. And Xie Lian jogged as he searched and never gave up. And so Hua Cheng's like, how goes it? No response. And soon after the two came to the tallest pavilion in the area, it was a star of its surroundings, a centerpiece. It had the established plaque, the Terrace of Cascading Wine. And that's when they both realize that it's one of the famous tales. And so Hua Cheng gives the account. I like that Hua Cheng knows all the famous tales. He knows all the things. He's been reading, right? And so we find out the legend of the malicious crook that the Windmaster pours the wine over. And so I do like the slight levity that Xie Lian's like, you know, some people think it would be really kind of outlandish to ascend while you're drinking. He's like, but I ascended while I was sleeping. Maybe one day a heavenly official will ascend while they were in the bathroom. The fact of the matter too that Junwoo shows up when they ascend, like Junwoo showing up with the wine at the pavilion, not unbelievable. Junwoo showing up with Xie Lian sleeping, not unbelievable. But I would hate to be Junwoo and somebody's like on the toilet and you show up and you're like, it's time to ascend. That would be absolutely mortifying. So I'm glad we have that levity in this story because it's needed in these chapters because they're crazy. But stories of scholars teasing guests have been popular throughout history, and places these stories would always incite the urge for intellectuals to raise their brush and create, expressing their yearning for a heavenly lifestyle. This place was one such landmark. And so, yeah, it said there were no tourists in the middle of the night, but the next day there would be for sure many tourists who would discover, astonished, that the houses and trees had been blown away and cry that the Windmaster had shown up. But the renowned sight of the young lord who poured wine was slightly different than Xie Lian had imagined. Yeah, so it's like the way that they revere the young lord who poured wine is rather interesting, right? So then, out of nowhere, Hua Cheng says, Gege, I need to take care of something small. Please do be careful. I won't be long. What? Why are you suddenly leaving? It's like when he recalled Hua Cheng's angry voice and how unfriendly his demeanor was. He's like, are you going to find the Reverend of Empty Words? And he pauses and says, no. If it wasn't that, then it wasn't his business. And he's like, well, you only came for fun, so that's right, but, take care of yourself. And he says, when I come back, I'll tell you something. And he's like, what? So, what the fudge, Hua Cheng? You've been mysterious this entire time, and suddenly you just decide to peace out? Why? So, yeah, why did Hua Cheng suddenly leave? Where did he go? Where did he go? Why did he leave? And what is he telling Xie Lian? What is this small thing? What is this small thing he has to take care of? What? And so okay, well, here's something to think about though, too. He suddenly says, I need to go take care of something small. Be careful, I won't be long. I wonder, Hua Cheng probably has like other private communication arrays, and Xie Lian has been like talking to himself and trying to figure out what the deal with the Windmaster is and figuring out what's all going on. So he's been too busy piecing that together to notice Hua Cheng could have been having a private communication array conversation with someone back where Long Ying is at, and Guzi and Chi Rong. So maybe something back at the Pucci Shrine has happened, and he's like, oh, hey, I gotta go take care of this. Make sure my ghosts are watching your kids and your cousin. I'll be right back. So maybe that's the case. Maybe he went to go take care of something at the Pucci Shrine, but he asks if he's going to go find the Reverend of Empty Words, and Hua Cheng's like, he pauses and says, no. So I don't think Hua Cheng did anything with the Windmaster. I don't. Because it was at the start before an hour passed. So I don't think Hua Cheng has anything to do with the Windmaster's circumstance. I don't. However, if Hua Cheng is realizing that Xie Lian is going to have to contact the Windmaster, then he's realizing that Pei Ming and Ling Wen will probably come as well. And the last thing Hua Cheng wants is for them to assume that he has anything to do with the Windmaster's problem. Not because Hua Cheng is scared of any of the heavenly officials. He's not. But he doesn't want to cause any more distress for Xie Lian. So he doesn't want Xie Lian to get in trouble or for anybody to think that Xie Lian was like harboring him or anything. So he's left. But what is all this business? MXTX, you just make him leave without anything. And so Ming Yi can't find anything. And so like, we're going to have to report the Watermaster. And so at that point, it's like the worst case scenario happens. Xie Lian contacts Ling Wen, asks for the Watermaster. And it's like, it's one of those things, whenever my dad and my brother do this all the time, and it makes my mother and I so frustrated. They'll call, and like, if their cars broke down, right? All you had to say was, hey, don't worry about anything, but my cars broke down. If you can come help me, we'll be great, right? That's all you have to say. You don't have to panic. You don't have to cause any undue stress. But my brother and my dad have this really bad habit of when they call, they'll be like, okay, worst case scenarios happened. They'll call me like, okay, still alive, but, and you're like, wait, what? What's happening? And there's all this panic. They'll say something that's like not even really a big thing, but the way they phrase it, you think that the world's coming to an end. And you're like, I'll be there in 5 seconds. And you get there and they're like, oh, it's not a big deal. And you're like, what? So that's how this reminded me of, is that Xie Lian is trying to get a hold of the Watermaster and just immediately says, hey, your brother could be dead. Might want to come down here. And they're like, wait, what? And then as soon as he says that, the Windmaster shows up. What? How? So the moment that Xie Lian reaches the main building, he sees that from afar the terrace is hung with something, and it's a white cloth. So it's almost like the Reverend of Empty Words. It's like they hid the Windmaster until Xie Lian contacted Wudu. It's like they intentionally hid him until it was time. But I don't think Hua Cheng had anything to do with it unless Hua Cheng left to go find the Reverend of Empty Words and lied to Xie Lian and got them to bring the Windmaster back. Unless that was the case. But yeah. And so they look for His Highness, and then that's when Ming Yi discovers that something has happened at the tallest pavilion of the tower, of the Terrace of Cascading Wine. And so it's like they both go to the top of the tower, and in the center of the floor is the Windmaster. But there's no injuries to them. Their eyes are closed. Ming Yi's helping him up. Something fell from his chest, and it was the fan split in half. Like, what? How is the Windmaster not injured at all, but their spiritual device is destroyed? Like, that spiritual device is hundreds of years old. Like, what? And then, on the plaque is the words that were at the beginning of this tale, wretched beginning, wretched end. The curse that was bestowed upon the Windmaster the day of their birth. So, then Ming Yi asks where Hua Cheng is. And Xie Lian's like, oh my god, Hua Cheng left at the most suspicious moment possible. Like, the fact that he left right before we found the Windmaster and he's in this horrible state looks really bad on Hua Cheng's part. But in Xie Lian and Hua Cheng's defense, Hua Cheng's been with Xie Lian the whole time, right? So it couldn't have been him. So he's like, He lies and says, I asked him to go search for the Reverend of Empty Words, which is a lie. And then says, he tells Ming-Yi to not say anything about Lord Hua. He says there's many, and he's right, there are many in the heavenly realm that would exaggerate and gossip and say that this was all Hua Cheng's fault. And Xie Lian, who knows it's not all his fault, doesn't want him to get falsely blamed. And the moment that Pei Ming shows up, it's like, yeah, it's probably good that we don't mention Hua Cheng, because Pei Ming is out for blood. And it seems like Pei Ming is bound and determined to prove that Xie Lian and Hua Cheng are a thing. It's like people have like burned him for it, and he's like, no, I was right. And so he's trying to prove it, right? And so then, because there's no distance shortening spell, the Windmaster being in danger, the Watermaster just ascends on this golden carriage, like in the most outrageous, overly exaggerated way possible, like with a giant flashing arrow saying, I am Watermaster, like ascending down. Like the Reverend of Empty Words would instantly know who it is. And yeah, and if mortals see them, there's going to be an uproar in the mortal realm. Like it's setting a possible chain reaction of bad things. Like if the Watermaster is seen by mortals coming down, it's going to cause a chain reaction, which could impact his trials that he's going through right now. And that's what the Windmaster wanted to avoid. But it happens anyway because he's so worried about his brother. He's so worried. And Xie Lian is like, if anybody asks later, Hua Cheng was never here. And Ming-Yi says, sure, I won't lie. I mean, I won't tell him that he was. I'll lie for you. Because I think Ming-Yi knows how much Xie Lian feels about Hua Cheng, even if Xie Lian's not aware. I think Ming-Yi has an idea. But yeah, oh my God, like the Watermaster immediately running up. I do empathize with the Watermaster in this chapter because they see their brother just lying in Xie Lian's arms and is like, oh my God, what happened? And Xie Lian says that they've ran into the Reverend of Empty Words. And the Watermaster's like, are you serious? Now, here's the problem. The problem is that Ling Wen and Pei and the Watermaster are probably going to associate all these bad things happening to the Windmaster because of Xie Lian and because of the Earthmaster and because of Hua Cheng. That's what I'm afraid of, because way back chapters before, the Watermaster said, don't hang out with any unsavory people, or bad thing. And now we know that he probably told him that because he was afraid that the Reverend of Empty Words would like catch wind, right? It's kind of like a magnet, right? The Reverend of Empty Words was like drawn like a magnet to Xie Lian and others of misfortune, right? To feed off of that fear. And so, yeah, I'm going to assume that Ling Wen knows that Xie Lian is like a god of misfortune. She knows that. Pei Ming believes that Hua Cheng is awful and the worst thing ever and is bound and determined to tie him to Xie Lian. And the Watermaster doesn't like the Earthmaster. So it's like the three tumors and the three misfit friends of the Windmaster are all in the same room together. And it's just a big old commotion, right? But they had deeply knitted brows. And like he's worried about his brother, yeah. And so that's when Ling Wen is like, gets out all these bottles of medicines, like give them to all of them. And Pei Ming, it's you again, Your Highness. Pei Ming is just bound and determined to get Xie Lian in trouble. He's wanting to clear his name and clear Pei Jr.'s name by getting Xie Lian in trouble. And Xie Lian's like, can't be helped. Like, there's only so many of us going back and forth. Like, Xie Lian's like, I'm the only one running errands down here, so of course you'd be bound and determined to see me. And Pei Ming's like, it seems that every time we see you, the other one is always here. Is it the same? And Xie Lian's like, no, Hua Cheng, no, of course not, no. And Ming-Yi doesn't say a thing. Yeah, it's definitely better that Hua Cheng left beforehand, so he wasn't at the scene of the crime. But then Wudu sees the bloody words on the wall and is like, who wrote it? Who wrote it? And so he knows about the curse. He knows what's going on. And it's like, but the Reverend of Empty Words wrote it, and that's what Xie Lian told you. So clearly this is like, this runs deep with these two, and it's freaking them both out, right? And then the Windmaster, they wake up to their biggest nightmare. They wake up to seeing the Reverend of Empty Words said that the Windmaster's brother and friends and closest kin would all die by his hand. Well, now he's in this pavilion. The Reverend of Empty Words is there. And who is all around him? All the people the Reverend of Empty Words said would die. Like his words. And his brother's about to go through a trial and is wasting his time helping him. It's like the worst case scenario. Yeah, of course the Windmaster would be freaked out. And then we get a cliffhanger. MXTX, why? Why? Just why? So yeah, what was this chapter called? This chapter 112. What was it called? I wanted to go back to that and see what exactly it was labeled as. It had a weird name, right? The doors open to greet the ghost. Drawn earth a prison. So the doors open to greet the ghost. That makes sense because it's the doors were opening to the pavilion. The ghost got in. But drawn earth a prison. What does that mean? That's interesting. Does that chapter have a different title in the English translation? If I go back to that chapter. From a designed prison, doors open to greet the ghost. Oh, okay, from a designed prison. Interesting. So from a designed prison's door open to greet the ghost. So like from inside of a prison, the doors open. So like the Windmaster obviously was in there and considered it a prison. Interesting. So yeah, there's definitely some mystery still surrounding this entire deal, right? There's a mystery of... I do think Ming Yi's innocent, by the way. I know the last several chapters have put Ming Yi like through the ringer of are they guilty or not guilty. I think Ming Yi's innocent. I think they were questioned, but Ming Yi has come out with flying colors as far as we know. The only kind of suspicious thing is that it's Ming Yi that finds the Windmaster on top of the pavilion. That's the only kind of weird thing, is that Xie Lian, the Windmaster, like the Windmaster's outer robe was hanging to draw Xie Lian's attention, and they were like, huh. And then Ming Yi is the one that finds the Windmaster. That's the only kind of suspicious thing going on that I'm like, what are we doing with that? So that's the only reason they're suspicious, but otherwise I think they're fine. I think Ming Yi's okay. The Windmaster is going through it. And I feel for the Windmaster because they were my favorite characters and they are just on the struggle bus. Everything is Panic City and I feel so badly for them. I'm like, ugh, what do we do? And then Xie Lian is trying to keep his best friend calm, convince Ming Yi not to tell the Heavenly Realm about Hua Cheng, figure out what Hua Cheng's deal is, and hide him from the Heavenly Realm, make sure they don't think he's part of all of this, because he's not, as far as we know, and is also realizing that maybe they like Hua Cheng and are scared of the idea of them being hurt, even though it's not technically possible. So there's that. And then Hua Cheng has some very suspicious stuff going on where they just pieced out right before the Windmaster and them showed up. Conveniently, before the Windmaster showed back up, they pieced out to go take care of something and then cryptically said when he got back, he would tell Xie Lian something. What are we telling him? What was the small thing you had to go take care of? Why did you have to go take care of it now? What's the deal? So there's so much mystery, and all the players that the Windmaster has been trying to keep at bay show up in this moment. And of course it's going to be embarrassing that Pei Ming and Ling Wen are there to see the Windmaster like faltering and having their fan broken and everything. So I'm so mad this is a cliffhanger. And you know what the worst part is? I am leaving tomorrow to go on a trip for the next 5 days. I can't read this. I can't read the next chapter for like half a week until I get back. That's the worst part. I have to wait to read the rest. So sad. I'm so sad. I have to wait. I am going to have to suffer like you all, and I'm not going to get to read this till next week. That's the worst part about it. And it's on a damn cliffhanger, so... Should I get used to it this volume? We've had 2 cliffhangers in a row. Should I just get used to it? Should every week I just get used to it? I I am really, honestly, it's so bizarre, but I'm really liking the Windmaster story. The chapters are going by so quickly, and I feel like there's not been anything like hugely revealing in this story so far. Like, you know, in other arcs, like with Qi-Rong and the past arc with Xie Lian's flashback and everything, there's been these big giant reveals, right? And it's been like a moment. And here, everything has been very subtle. Like, all the reveals have been very subtle. We're slowly getting into the other tales. We're getting more into their flirting. We're getting more into the Windmaster's past. But there's not been any, like, big, giant, oh my god reveals. And I'm thinking that this is all building up to one. We just haven't got there yet. I feel like there are going to be little tiny, like, moments to lead to a, oh my god moment. And we've just not got there yet. So yeah. But I'm really curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, hints, or clues. But I hope you all have a wonderful week. I know I'm going to be like sitting there suffering, being like, I want to know what happens in the next chapters. For the record, if you want to read ahead, since I can't, next week will be chapters 113 to 115. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not anything bad. Hopefully they can calm the Windmaster down. Everything's going to be okay. I'm sure nothing bad's going to happen. It's going to be totally fine. Hua Cheng will come right back once they leave and be right as rain. Right? So, I'm curious to know your thoughts down below, but I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with chapters 113 to 115 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye.